Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystified.
Welcome to today's episode, and today we welcome Steve Suarez, CEO of Horizon X. Hi, Steve. You're joining us from Miami, and we're delighted to have you. So I wondered if you could just give people a brief introduction to yourself and Horizon X as well.
Yeah, thanks, David, and welcome everybody. So yeah, Steve Suarez. I am a recovering banker. So I was with HSBC for 20 years. I was the former head of innovation for global functions at the bank. I had worked in different jurisdictions, started out in the US, was in Paris, managing the European entities in transformation, and then eventually ended up in London to manage risk, compliance, financial crime. And then I got really interested and got into innovation, and it's really pushed where my focus has been the last couple of years. So I left HSBC about a year and a half ago. And then since then, I've joined a couple boards, and I'm some advisory. So I'm doing some work at Bain & Company, Mitsubishi Corporation, a couple quantum computing companies. So the Quera Computing, doing stuff with Classique. I got a couple others that I'm working on, space agency with sending satellites with the Indian Space Agency on QKD and looking at chips. And then just some different companies around PQC Security, QSecure, and some other companies. So I've got a lot of companies. I'd like to keep myself busy.
You're a very busy man. Well, I mean, I guess you're entangled in a job, aren't you, with lots of superposition going on. And
my wife says that I'm dangerous when I'm bored, so I try not to be bored.
We're here to talk about quantum computing. We bumped into you a few times at various conferences, and I know that you're a keynote speaker at many of the quantum computing conferences. So I was keen to start off by getting your views on what happened in 2024, because it feels like quantum computing came back into the limelight a bit, and particularly as we headed into the end of the year, and then the announcement of Willow seems to have really got people thinking about stuff. So I was keen to get your view as one of the sort of OGs of quantum around 2024 and what you thought had happened.
Yeah, I guess the gray hair helps out because then you get called the OGs. Yeah, so look, 2024 for quantum and for me has been a preparation year. There's a lot of things that need to happen in quantum to make it a mature industry, but you can see there's a lot of advancements going on in the quality of qubits. There's a lot of advancements going on in error correction. And so these are all different activities that need to happen for us to get to a fault-tolerant system, which will be needed for us to actually say, hey, we're in the quantum era. And so right now, really the focus has been on getting advancements. And 2024 has been year of advancements. You hear all kinds of news from Microsoft, from Quera, from IBM, from many different companies out there talking about kind of the advancements and what they're doing. So it's an exciting time to be part of it. I think a lot of people have been really focused on AI, and AI has taken up most of everybody's attention, which has been good for me because that's given me the room and my company the room, making sure that we had the right services, the right products to be able to help people in the quantum era. And I think as quantum does take off, which I'm a big believer that in 2025, it's going to be a big year for quantum, people are going to need education. They're going to need helping with their strategy, and they're going to need help doing some experimentation. Because it's new, they're going to have to experiment and understand, where does quantum fit in for my organizations? And I feel like we're incredibly well positioned to help organizations do that. And then obviously with a lot of my other side projects, we're doing stuff around informing people how things are going. I think you were going to talk about the quantum index that I've been working with in partnership with the Quantum Insider.
It's really interesting. I think that summary of 2024 feels like it's absolutely resonates with what I've been seeing. And what we're seeing is a real groundswell of interest in quantum. But I think what people may not understand is just where it is. So to get your perspective on, I guess we're in a sort of still in a pre-quantum world. Just to get your perspective on that would be a good one. But we spoke with Yuval Boger from Quera, and that was really interesting because I know that they've got a computer which has got 256 qubits. And, from what certainly I understand, the more qubits you have, the more potential there is for advancement. And then we had the announcement of Willow as well. So would you be able to just explain a bit about that perspective for our audience as well?
Yeah, I was talking about the whole error correction. And then with Willow, it pretty much says that the more qubits you have, the more you can associate it to error correction, which means that the better the results of the products that will come out. And so it's not only about qubits, it's about the quality of what's coming out. So I think part of it is seeing the advancements, and it's not just one company, it's one company pushes other companies and other companies. So it's a constant race on who's getting ahead and how they're getting ahead. And so I think everybody knows that error correction is going to be a key part of it. We need computers that reduce the noise and help the output of what these computers are able to do. And that's why a lot of people are focusing on error correction or the amount of qubits that they're able to apply to the error correction. And so I think that's going to be a key. I think the other part, maybe that's more technical, Dave. And so what from my end and what I try to do in my courses is try to bring everything down to everyday what people will understand. So quantum is a new way of computing. It's using quantum mechanics to help you compute. The reality is not everybody needs to understand how it happens and all the technical part. You need to understand what are the capabilities and how do you take advantage of those capabilities. But you also need to understand the landscape. So as these computers get stronger, they get better, it creates incredible opportunities for things like optimization, simulation, machine learning. But it also creates threats. And these are the things that people are probably paying more attention to today, because I think it was August 13th, NIST released its PQC algorithms, which is post-quantum cryptography algorithms, to help protect against quantum computers and the rise of these quantum computers. And frankly, if you're in a business today and you're talking about this future technology that's going to have a big impact, but then you're talking about this near-term impact on your cybersecurity, I think that's what's going to start grabbing people's attention right now. So the way I look at quantum and how I help people out is right now it's focused on how do I help them become more secure, prepare that, because that's not a race you want to start working on the day it's ready, because once it's ready, it's game over, right? That's something you want to start working on now and preparing your organization, because it's going to take a while. So my focus has been on how do I help people protect themselves, because that's what they're interested in now. And then also how to build a strategy for the future. And guess what? We're using things like AI to actually make quantum better. And I feel like AI is going to make quantum better, but eventually quantum is going to make AI better. And so it's kind of a cycle between these two technologies that's actually quite exciting. And so a lot of people are in the AI market. I feel like it's very saturated. I think quantum hopefully doesn't get there, but I feel like it will, because it'll become the new hot topic. And I think there'll be some opportunity. So what I'm looking at is really both starting on the security side, but then also helping on the opportunity side. But looking at it holistically, it's got to be like ambidextrous. You got to look at it from both sides.
A defensive and an offensive strategy. So yeah, no, it's very cool.
Steve, you were saying that 2025 is going to be a big year for quantum. Why is that?
Well, number one is the United Nations Assembly has designated 2025 the International Year of Quantum. And that's going to take off here in Paris. I think it's February 4th, which I'll be there. It's going to kick off here in Paris. So the whole world's going to be brought attention about quantum, the abilities, how exciting it is. And so part of what I'm looking to do and preparing myself is how do I become that front door to help educate everybody into quantum computing? When I first got into quantum computing, The only classes there were very technical. You got into the maths within 30 minutes of getting into the class. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is just like, there's no way. But I'm also hard-headed. And when somebody tells me, oh, Steve, that's not for you, or it's too technical, I just work harder to try to understand it. And so I took the course, even though it was really hard for me to take the course. Thank God you only needed a 60 at MIT to pass to take those courses. But I learned a lot, and I forced myself to learn a lot. But I also learned that there was a huge opportunity that if you're going to train executives in this technology, you have to make it make sense to them. You have to apply it to what they do, and you have to take out the technology part of it and show them the possibilities of what this technology can do, show them the threats of this technology can do, and be able to do it in a layman's perspective. As I mentioned, Dinesh, I sit on a lot of boards, and I could tell you cyber is one of the topics that come up. Emerging technologies like AI, a lot of boards felt kind of sideswiped with this coming in. And so part of what I want to do is learn from our lessons to say, how do I teach boards about this technology, what they need to worry about, and more importantly, what they don't need to worry about, and how do they prepare themselves at something that doesn't take hours or months like it did for me to learn about this technology. The course that I'm actually looking to deploy with MIT is about anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. We're finalizing it now. Hopefully by the time this goes out, we'll have a link out there where people can sign up.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's interesting because you've got a collaboration with MIT where you run a bunch of courses, but I think that one's for business leaders to really understand. And having looked at sort of some of the other courses, they seem incredibly well structured. And I'm guessing the content is very aimed at the audience as well, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm a big believer, ever since I left the bank, I wanted to work with the best and brightest. So the fact that MIT saw value in the strategy and how we built the strategy, and they wanted me to kind of show what we have done, how we built that, so I can help other organizations do that. And I thought it's really good. I'm super excited. I can't wait. I'm pushing on these guys to help get that course out there, but I think it's going to be incredibly beneficial.
Because you're absolutely right that Gen AI hit boards in a way that, was totally unexpected. So being pre-warned about this stuff is super important, particularly as you talk about in terms of the defensive cybersecurity aspects of all of. There isn't, I guess, a large company in the world where cryptography isn't part of what they do day to day, is there?
No. And if anybody taking cryptography lightly right now, those are companies you need to watch out for, I guess.
Yeah, Q-Day is coming, isn't it, at some point? And as you say, if you're going to wait for Q-Day to turn up and then start doing it, that's already 10 years too late, isn't it, probably?
I always use the analogy, it's like running a marathon. You don't show up the day of a marathon and start running. You train, you eat properly, you do all this. If you show up the day of the marathon and haven't trained, you're in for a pretty lousy day.
Yeah. Well, Dharmish is a long distance runner. So what do you think of that? Shall I enter the London Marathon and not train and see what happens?
It's going to be very painful.
Very painful. Or you might not finish within the 6 hours. And so then you did all that for nothing and it's game over.
So can I ask, in terms of the courses themselves, if people take the course, it's a collaboration between yourselves and MIT, do they get a qualification at the end? Is there something that they can put on their LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they'll get a certificate from MIT. It'll be with MIT's logo. This is all MIT. So there's nothing that Horizon X will be branded. They'll have my picture in there. They'll put down, CEO of Horizon X. And this will probably go out after but some of the shirts I was wearing said Horizon X, but I'm not allowed to brand, this is an MIT product for MIT students. And so what I'm going to be doing is helping MIT promote it. So just like any other MIT course, you do the course, it's 4 to 6 hours. At the end of it, you get a certificate. And the good news is if you want to go deeper, we have 4 other courses behind that course that lets you go down that rabbit hole and go as deep as you want to in that rabbit hole. I think I give people enough information about how to build a strategy, what they need to look out for, the different approaches on how I looked at it working for a large bank and putting that strategy together. But the other side of it is I have a strategy firm and I work for a strategy firm. And so if I can help people say, all right, here's how large organizations need to prepare themselves and how you can prepare yourself, because it's coming. It could be next year, it could be the year after, but I'd like to be a big brand that helps people work on that quantum strategy.
I don't know if this is a good question or not, actually, but in terms of the people you're talking to, are they generally in the security bit of the bank or the innovation? It's like, where is this from a kind of consultancy point of view landing?
You know what? A little bit of different places, actually. It's not one place. There is a bit of security. So IT security, CISOs, they do want to talk, and they actually appreciate me coming and updating their board, because what I'm doing is I'm actually selling what they need to do for them. So they're like, hey guys, why don't you get this training from Steve and from people from MIT to talk about quantum? But within that training, I do talk about the security aspects and how they need to protect themselves. And then that's when they're like, oh, you know what? We got to get our head of cybersecurity on this. And now they start saying, hey, now there's an outside person telling me the same thing that our internal CISO person is telling us. So my focus, Dave, has been mostly on board level people. And the reason I go for board level people is that if I update the board and they do the training and they do the course, then they're a lot more better prepared. They understand it. We can take the fear mongering out of it, but understand, okay, here's where we're going to focus our energies. Then we can go to the C level and say, okay, let's take your strategy and apply it to quantum. Other organizations do the opposite. They're like, okay, let's take quantum and apply it to your, in other words, they're letting quantum lead the charge instead of the strategy lead the charge, which is a complete mistake. And then, so a lot of people like to work, let me do a POC for you. So you do a POC with a mid-level manager. The POC might be a huge success, but now that mid-level manager has to work their way up to get funding, to get the buy-in, to get all this other stuff. Even though you have something that was amazing, that like you improved by X amount, you're working your way up that hill. I'm focused on starting at the top of the hill, educating them. Who fears somebody coming in to educate, right? So if I told you, hey, I'm going to come in and build a quantum computer that's going to cost you millions of dollars, people are like, oh, wait, no, hold on. Hey, no, I'm coming in to do a 2-hour education course to educate you guys about this new technology. And so part of my focus has been coming in through that, educating them first, building in that trusted partner, trusted advisor type of partnership, helping the C-level build that strategy so that it ties into their strategy, so that I look at their strategy and say, all right, here's how quantum can help out there. And then from that base, how do you do POCs? Because now you know your POCs are tied to a strategy and that people are going to take notice and you have that top support. And so that's the approach I'm taking, which is that side of it.
Is there a way that banks can see what other banks are doing? I'm just thinking that, like, there's a few that get ahead of the curve, right? And they tend to be the visionary ones, etc. But then the rest tend to be like fast followers. They have a herd mentality, like, oh, so-and-so is doing that, we better get on the bandwagon. Is there a way of measuring, like, how much quantum adoption there is?
I think you're just like plugging in all this to the work that I'm doing, because now that's where I'm going to talk about the quantum index. And that's exactly what we're doing. And so I've been working very closely with the guys over at the Quantum Insider, and we released an automotive index on what automotive companies are doing and who's leading the charge. And so if for your listeners want to go out there, just type in thequantumindex.com and you get to see the automotive one. Now, I know, Dave, you talked about this releasing while I'm at Davos, which is great. And so for your listeners, and you'll be the first ones to hear, we're also launching it for financial services. So if you log in the week of Davos, I'm hoping that you're going to see who are the top financial services and how they're doing it, from research from patents, from team size, from a lot of different metrics that we're using to kind of rate who's on top and what they're doing, and then who's working their way up. And so I think it's a good way for the industry to say, all right, who's the leader and who's leading the charge? And then who are the laggards? And you got to decide, are you going to be a leader? Do you want to be a leader? It's expensive to be a leader, but do you want to be a leader in this industry? Or are you okay, fine being a laggard? I would say in quantum, that's one technology that I don't know that I want to be on the laggard side. And so the good news is that, and that's where we help people move up that ladder as well, as far as research, team size, hiring talent, putting together strategies, helping them do what they need to kind of move up that ladder. Not so much to move up the index, but preparing their organizations.
Is it because of the risk, the threats of quantum that you shouldn't be a laggard? Is that really, the crux of it? Because you could say, well, look, one year there was all this momentum around Meta and the metaverse, and you should jump on, and everyone's piling cash in, and we saw billions go in, and actually very little to show for it in the end. So jumping in too soon is sometimes seen as a problem as well. But what's the reason really, I guess, why people need to jump in now with quantum?
I think it's both. It's the threat side that's probably more immediate, but then it's the opportunity side. And the power that this will give is a true digital divide of people that will have this technology. I'll tell you the difference with AI is when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, all of us had access day one.
Yeah.
We all could play around with it. We all able to use that AI and make it to our benefit. With quantum computing, there's going to be limited computers. There's going to be limited talent. There's going to be limited people that know how to work on that. Once that blows up, it's the people that are going to be, it's not something that you're just going to give available to everybody and everybody's going to have it. So it is going to be different. And I think that the people, going back to my marathon analogy, the people who start the training now, start the work now, start developing that muscle memory, because it is different than normal classical computers. Those are the people that are going to have that advantage, that speed, and the compute power that this is meant to provide is just going to be exponentially faster. And so that's why I tell people, this is not something you want to come into second or third place. This is something you want to be ahead of and to drive it. So part of me isn't about, there's the threat element, there's the opportunity element, but then there's the availability element that I don't think everybody understands. They're going to think it's an AI moment or ChatGPT moment where everybody will have access. The reality is that's not what quantum will do.
It's a very interesting, well-made point, because I do think people are confused, but there is a sort of degree of confusion between AI and quantum, that they're all linked in somehow, they're the same thing-ish. And it's really interesting to get people's perspectives on that. So, I guess one of the questions leading on from that is, this is something Dharmesh and I have been thinking about, is like the financial services industry. Like the traditional players have bigger balance sheets at the moment, and they can really afford to dig into this. So
Yeah.
do you see this as a real opportunity for the large institutions to kind of reclaim some of the high ground around opportunity? Because going back to what you talk about in terms of opportunity is, if you can use quantum for machine learning, that opens up doors to personalizations, all of the things that people talk about, optimization, like portfolio management. Suddenly the larger companies, if they can afford to do this, puts them in a very interesting position from a kind of customer point of view, doesn't it?
It does, but keep in mind, you don't have to spend a lot of money. So I don't want to give the foul that you have to throw millions out of it. And I think, Demystified, to your point, you could get in too early and spend too much money. Just like any other technology, they jump in and spend too much money. This is why you don't want to get caught off guard. Smartly educate yourself first. Start with the education part. Understand. Once you understand, then you can start making informed decisions on where you want to spend your money and how you want to spend your money. And if you're targeted and disciplined, guess what? You're going to spend less money, but more on focused areas where you actually have a chance to win and to drive it. And the good thing is that once you build your algorithms and once you build your processes, you're looking at the outside. I call this quantum vigilance. You're looking at the outside companies that are building the quality, the error correction. They're getting better. So at the same time, you're actually working internally. They're actually externally working better. And you're going to come to this kind of cross point. And that's the cross point that I talk about in the course called Quantum Advantage, where you can find commercial value out of quantum. So as the outside market is getting better, the quality is getting better, you're working internally. Once that intersection happens, boom, it's magic. You can start. If you wait and you do it farther out, well, yes, you'll get there, but it's going to be farther out, while your competitors might be bringing that curve inwardly. And so what I try to do is you can be smart about this, spend money smartly, educate yourself. You don't have to throw a lot of silly money out the door doing things that provide no value. And that's why working with people that have done this, kind of have seen the movie, is critical, because somebody will tell you, don't waste money, don't waste time. You're not ready for that. But you could do X, Y, and Z, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to do these type of work.
I'm going to expand your analogy with the marathon, because it would be like, oh, I've got to run 26 miles and then spending a lot of days and months just doing lots of running, right? Now, if you asked an experienced runner, they'd say, well, look, you do want to do some running. You don't have to run 26 miles every week to practice. But what you also need is to understand what nutrition, hydration, what flexibility you need in your muscles, how to build up the strength in your muscles without just doing running all the time, because you won't get all those other factors right. So it's a bit like that, right? It's much more complex than the one thing.
One thing about running, and believe it or not, I've run 2 marathons, the Paris one and the Berlin one. And the one thing that I learned, it's not only about the running. You know, you got the muscular part of it. You got the skeletal part of it. You got the ligament part of it. You've got the mindset part of it. You got the breathing part of it. There's so many different parts that you have to bring together, and they all have to function very well for it to work. And it's the same thing with quantum. You got the people that are going to be writing the algorithms. You got the SMEs that know, hey, here's where you can do. You got the hardware people. There's people, and you have to bring those people. And if they haven't worked together before and they don't know what they're doing, by the time the marathon's here and, hey, guys, we have a computer and it's fantastic, now you're starting to throw bodies in there. That's going to get expensive. What I'm saying is start small, understand, get a small team. When we first started at the bank, I got a bunch of people that were volunteers, people that knew about this, that was interested, and would give me a part of their time to say, hey, you know, what do we do? And then it got really serious, and then we had to put steering committees, and we put money behind it and stuff like that. So you don't need to scare people. This is not about, hey, how many millions can you put at this? You could ask my wife. I'm a pretty frugal guy. I actually look to get value out of, you know, every dollar that I put in. So there's ways to be smart about it.
I love your starting point, which is about you've educated yourself. You're now providing education to various tiers of the business. But it's also, I love the idea of the index as well, because actually quantum is a black box for many people. They don't really understand what it means. So I think as a way of bringing it to life, it's a tremendous thing. So thank you so much for putting the effort with Quantum Insider into doing it, because I know it's something that both Dharmesh and I will be using on a regular basis. So sadly, we're sort of running out of time. But if people want to sign up to the course, then we'll provide a link. They look very interesting and doable. And, you know, if you get a nice MIT certificate at the end, what better thing to put on LinkedIn than that, hey? So
yeah, absolutely.
But no, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting. Really appreciate it. And I guess we'll be trying to check in with you over 2025 and seeing how things are going. So good luck at Davos. Good luck at Paris in February as well. It sounds like it's going to be a big year for quantum.
And thank you for being my first podcast of the year.
Wow. It's our pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.